Far beyond the shining core worlds of the Galactic Empire, a whisper began to spread. It was not a loud rumor shouted in the market halls of alien cities. It was something darker, quieter, something that made even hardened soldiers lower their voices when they spoke. The whisper was about humans, those fragile creatures who lived on a small blue world, those who the Empire often mocked as latecomers to the stars. And yet now something about them was making the galaxy uneasy. It started with signals, strange signals at the very edge of human territory. Empire scouts picked up bursts of energy that did not fit any known pattern. They expected static or maybe a test of some primitive engine, but instead the readings were steady, controlled, almost deliberate. At first the reports were laughed at. The great admirals of the Empire dismissed it as human clumsiness. "They cannot build anything worth fearing," they said with amusement. "They barely understand the void." But then the scouts did not return. The first missing scout was brushed aside. Maybe pirates, maybe an engine failure. Accidents happened in deep space. But then a second went missing, and then a third. Each time the last transmissions grew stranger. One reported seeing a shadow in the distance, something massive and silent. Another sent back only static and a scream before vanishing. The final one, the fourth, transmitted a single clear sentence before the line went dead. "They're not ships. They're monsters." That sentence alone began to echo in every hidden corner of the Empire. Scientists tried to analyze the data, but the fragments made no sense. The energy spikes were too high for any human reactor. The mass estimates suggested structures larger than most Imperial battlecruisers. Yet this was impossible. Humans lacked the resources. Humans lacked the knowledge, or so everyone believed. In the deep war chambers of the Galactic Empire, the Emperor's Council gathered. The room glowed with starlight reflected on polished metal floors. One official laughed and waved his claws dismissively. "It is nothing but a trick. A desperate human attempt to look dangerous," another frowned, tail twitching with unease. "Then why are the scouts gone? Why do we hear only silence from that sector?" The debate grew heated, but the Emperor himself remained quiet, eyes fixed on the star map where human space was marked in pale blue. A corner of the galaxy once considered too weak to matter, now glowing like a wound that would not heal. Meanwhile, far from the grand palaces of the Empire, on forgotten mining colonies and frontier outposts, fear grew. Traders whispered of new restrictions around human borders, of hidden checkpoints, of patrol ships that never came back. A pilot who had barely escaped told a tale of a shape that blotted out the stars. "It moved without sound," he whispered in a tavern lit by dim yellow lamps. "Its skin was darker than the void. Its lights burned like eyes, and when it turned, I swear it was watching me." His hands shook so badly he spilled his drink. The Empire tried to silence these stories. They called them lies. They sent soldiers to arrest those who spread them. But the more they denied it, the stronger the whispers grew. Even children on core worlds began to ask their parents, "What are the humans building?" What made it worse was the silence from humanity itself. No official statements, no broadcasts, no threats, nothing but quiet. The kind of quiet that felt heavy, like the pause before a storm. The Empire had seen many wars. They had crushed countless rebellions, but never before had they faced an enemy that refused to speak, refused to show its hand. In the shadows of the Empire's fleets, fear began to gnaw at even the most confident officers. War veterans who had laughed at countless battles found themselves staring at the stars, wondering if somewhere out there a new predator was waiting, one that did not roar, one that did not boast, one that simply built and waited. And so the whisper grew from soldier to captain, from captain to admiral, from admiral to the Emperor himself, until even he, in the safety of his golden throne, asked the question no one wanted to answer. What if the humans have built something we cannot destroy? The galaxy, so vast and old, had always treated humanity as a child. But children grow, children learn, and sometimes, children surprise those who underestimate them now. As the Empire's fleets shifted nervously at the edge of human space, the whispers were no longer just whispers, they were warnings. The kind that made even the bravest hearts beat a little faster. The kind that told the galaxy that something new, something dangerous had awakened. And though no one in the Empire admitted it aloud, they all felt it in the silence between stars. The humans were not laughing. The humans were not begging. The humans were building. And whatever they were building, it was enough to make the mighty Galactic Empire afraid. The council chamber of the Galactic Empire was a place where fear was never spoken aloud. It was a place of marble floors, towering statues, and endless rows of armored guards. Yet on this day the air itself felt heavy. The whispers from the frontier had reached the throne, and the Emperor demanded answers. The Emperor sat high upon a seat of black stone. His cloak spread like wings, his face unreadable. Below him the council argued, one commander, scales glistening under the chamber lights, slammed his fist on the table. These are human lies, nothing more. They cannot build such things. They can barely keep their colonies alive. Another, older and more cautious, leaned forward. And what of the lost scout ships? What of the transmission that said they are monsters? Are those lies too? The hall grew silent for a moment. The Emperor's eyes narrowed as he studied the star map projected before him. Human space was a small patch of blue on the edge of the galaxy, insignificant compared to the vast red territories of the Empire. And yet the report said that in this small space something had awakened, something that silenced fleets. A young spy entered the chamber, bowing low, his voice trembling as he reported, "My team infiltrated the human border. We disguised our craft as merchants. We traveled deep into their systems." The chamber leaned closer, waiting. "What did you see?" asked the Emperor. The spy's face paled as he held up a small device. With a flick of his claw, a projection filled the air, blurry at first, then clearer. It showed a massive dark shape drifting above a human planet. Gasps echoed in the chamber. The shape was unlike any Empire warship. Its hull stretched for kilometers, lined with scars and strange plating. Engines glowed with a light that shimmered unnaturally, and its weapons bristled like thorns. The spy's voice cracked. "This was the last image we captured before they jammed our systems. The rest of my crew did not survive." The chamber erupted in chaos. Some laughed nervously, others whispered curses. "Impossible. Humans cannot build this. Someone else must be helping them," shouted one general. "No," said another, eyes wide with unease. "I have studied human trade. They import little. They refuse most alliances. If they built this, they built it alone." The Emperor raised his hand and the room fell silent. His voice was calm but edged with steel. "Send another spy, send 2, 3. I want confirmation." But even as he spoke, the spy collapsed to his knees, his voice a whisper. "Forgive me, Emperor, but there will be no more spies, the humans know. They are watching. They let me live only to deliver this warning." The council stiffened, a cold shiver rippling through even the most seasoned warriors. The Emperor leaned forward. "And what was their warning?" The spy raised his eyes, tears reflecting the golden light. "That the age of underestimating humanity is over." The Emperor dismissed the spy and sat back, silent, his fingers tapping the arm of his throne. The council waited for his judgment. Finally he spoke. "If these ships are real, then the balance of the galaxy shifts. We cannot ignore this. But we will not panic." He pointed at the admirals. "Assemble a fleet at the border, a fleet large enough to crush whatever they are building. If they are weak, we prove it. If they are strong, we will learn beyond the chamber." Rumors spread faster than light. Guards whispered to servants. Servants whispered to citizens. By the time the second moon rose above the imperial capital, half the empire already knew the humans had built something strange. Some claimed it was a weapon left behind by ancient gods. Others believed it was a living ship grown from human flesh and steel. Fear twisted the truth into endless shapes. Back in the council chamber, one advisor dared to speak after the Emperor's command. "My Emperor, forgive me, but what if we provoke them? What if we awaken a beast better left sleeping?" The Emperor's eyes blazed like burning suns. "Then better we face it now while it is young than later, when it is strong." His words silenced the room, but in the corners of their hearts even the bravest knew he was afraid. That night, alone in his private chambers, the Emperor stood before the great window of crystal. Staring at the stars, he remembered the message from the spy. "The age of underestimating humanity is over." He whispered the words to himself, feeling them cut deeper than any blade. For centuries the Empire had ruled without challenge. Now a race once mocked as farmers and dreamers was building ships that made even him doubt. Far away in the black of space, those ships waited, silent and unmoving, their dark hulls swallowing starlight, their engines humming with power no one yet understood. The humans said nothing. They did not threaten. They did not boast. They simply prepared, and that silence was louder than any war cry. The Emperor closed his eyes, and for the first time in decades, he wondered if the future of the galaxy no longer belonged to the Empire, but to the humans who refused to kneel. The fleet of the Galactic Empire moved like a storm across the stars, hundreds of warships gliding through the black void, their hulls gleaming with polished armor, their banners glowing red against the darkness. The mission was clear: to investigate the humans, to see with their own eyes if the whispers were truth or only rumor. The admirals on board laughed in their grand halls. They had crushed stronger enemies before. What could frail humans build that would shake the Empire? But deep inside, hidden beneath their pride, some of them carried a seed of doubt. The lost scouts, the trembling spy, the blurred image of a ship so vast it swallowed the stars. It gnawed at them as they traveled closer to human space. The lead admiral, Lord Veyron, stood at the bridge of his flagship, his eyes fixed on the glowing star map. His voice carried calm authority. Remember, this mission is simple. We approach, we observe, we report. Do not let whispers rule your hearts. These are humans, nothing more. Yet his fingers clenched behind his back. Betraying his unease, days passed in silence. The fleet pressed deeper into the region. At first, sensors showed nothing unusual, only drifting asteroids and quiet colonies. The humans seemed asleep. Too quiet until the 6th day, when a tremor rippled through every screen on every ship. Lights flickered. Alarms whispered warnings. The fleet froze from the darkness ahead. Something emerged. It was not like any ship the Empire had ever seen. It was not sleek, it was not polished, it was colossal. Its shape jagged, its armor dark as if forged from the void itself. It moved slowly, like a predator that did not fear being seen. Its sheer size dwarfed even the largest Imperial dreadnought. The crew gasped as their scanners tried to measure it. The numbers came back wrong. Impossibly wrong. "It cannot be that large," muttered one officer, hands shaking as he stared at the glowing figures. Our instruments must be broken, but the longer they stared, the clearer it became. The humans had built something that defied reason. Lord Veyron felt his throat tighten, yet he kept his voice steady. "Transmit hails. Demand identification." His officers obeyed. Messages raced through the void, but no answer came. The massive human ship drifted in silence, its lights glowing faintly like the eyes of something alive. Then slowly, its weapons came online. Lines of fire lit across its hull, strange turrets turning with impossible smoothness. The Empire fleet read the energy signatures and recoiled. The power output was beyond anything in their records. Weapons that should not exist. Weapons the humans should not even understand. "Impossible," whispered an admiral on a nearby ship. They should not be able to do this. Not in 1,000 years, yet the proof was before them. Suddenly, the entire fleet's sensors went black. Every radar, every scanner, every targeting system all dead in the same instant. The bridge lights flickered to red emergency glow. Crew shouted in panic. "We've lost all readings. We are blind." The human ship had not fired, it had not moved. It had simply reached out with some unseen force and silenced the Empire's most advanced systems. It was not an attack, it was a warning. Lord Veyron gripped the edge of his command chair, his voice sharp. "Hold formation, do not fire. We must see how far their power reaches." But even as he spoke, he felt the weight of dread settle over his heart. Through the massive viewports, the ship filled the stars, its black hull reflecting nothing, its engines glowing like suns trapped in cages. Some of the crew whispered prayers, others wept quietly. No one had ever made the Empire feel small before. Then, for the briefest moment, the ship moved, not with engines, not with thrust, but with a silent glide that defied known physics. One instant it was there, the next it was closer. As if space itself bent for it, the crew screamed, thinking it had jumped to attack. But it stopped just short of collision, looming over the Empire's proud fleet like a shadow. In that moment, the Empire knew the whispers were not lies. They were not exaggerations. The humans had built a monster on his bridge. Lord Veyron forced his voice to remain steady as he recorded a message to the Emperor. "We have seen the truth. Humans have created warships beyond our comprehension. We cannot underestimate them any longer." But even as he sent the message, the screens flickered once more. The transmission scrambled, the signal stolen. The humans had silenced them again. The fleet could only watch as the great warship turned, its lights dimming and drifted back into the darkness, leaving them blind and shaking. The silence that followed was worse than any battle, because it was not victory, it was not defeat. It was something new, something that made the galaxy's greatest fleet feel powerless. And though the human ship vanished into the void, its shadow remained in their hearts. They all knew the same truth now. The Galactic Empire was not the only power in the stars, and humanity had just shown them a glimpse of the future, a future that terrified them all. Far away from the trembling fleets of the Galactic Empire, deep inside the heart of human space, the truth was clear: the ships were real, the ships were powerful, And the ships were built not for conquest, but for survival. Humanity had always been underestimated, treated like children of the stars, mocked by older civilizations, ignored by empires that believed themselves eternal. But now the time of being ignored was over on Earth. In vast shipyards that hung like metal skeletons above the blue oceans, the greatest war machines of human history had been born. They were called guardians, not destroyers. They were built with steel, energy, and hope, but also with anger. Centuries of being treated as less. Centuries of watching the Empire crush weaker races. And centuries of being told humanity was too young to matter. All that pain had been melted into the black hulls of the warships. Captain Elias Ward stood at the bridge of the first Guardian ship, his face calm but his eyes sharp. He had grown up in a world where humans were called fragile, weak, soft. Now he commanded a vessel that could silence an entire fleet with one pulse. His crew looked to him and he spoke in simple words that echoed across the deck. "We never wanted war, but we will not kneel." The crew answered with steady silence, because they knew every word was true. In the halls of the United Earth Assembly, leaders debated in tense voices. Some wanted to reveal the ships to the galaxy. To warn off invaders, others wanted to keep them hidden. To strike only if the Empire attacked, the oldest among them, a woman with hair silver from decades of struggle, said calmly, "We did not build these to frighten. We built them to protect. We built them because no one else would." Her words carried the weight of history. Humanity had learned long ago that mercy was rare in the galaxy. If they did not defend themselves, no one would. The construction of the Guardians had been a secret, hidden in dark space beyond the Empire's eyes. Every colony, every outpost had sent something: metal from Mars, crystals from Titan, energy cores from Europa. Even the poorest settlements gave what they could. Humanity had united not out of ambition, but out of fear. Fear of being erased, fear of being forgotten, and from that fear came strength. Now the first Guardian stood ready, and behind it, dozens more were awakening. Black shadows in the void, their engines glowing with strange light, their weapons humming with power beyond imagination. Captain Elias stared at the tactical display. Each glowing dot a Guardian waiting in silence. His second officer whispered, "Do you think they are afraid?" Elias allowed himself a thin smile. "They should be, because they never believed we could stand. And now we do." On the colonies, ordinary people felt pride they had never known before. Children pointed at the skies and whispered about the Guardians. Old workers who had labored in the shipyards wept when they saw the first one leave dock, because they knew it carried their sweat, their blood, their sacrifice. Humanity had given everything to create these ships. They were not only machines of war, they were symbols that said humanity would no longer bow. Yet with pride came danger. The Empire was watching. The scouts, the spies, the whispers. Humanity knew the storm was coming. The Guardians might be strong, but the Empire was vast, older, and cruel. Elias understood this better than anyone. He knew the Guardians were a shield, but also a challenge. The moment the Empire believed humans were rising too high, they would strike. Still, Elias felt no fear, only resolve. He walked to the great window of the bridge, looking out at the endless stars, his voice calm as he spoke to his crew. "They think we are children. They think we are weak, but when the storm comes, we will show them what it means to be human." His words settled deep in their hearts. Far across space in secret chambers, the Empire was already plotting, but the humans did not care. They had been silent too long. They had hidden too long. Now their silence was broken by the hum of their great warships. And in that silence a promise was born. The Guardians would not strike first, they would not conquer. But if the Empire dared to cross into their stars, then the galaxy itself would see what humanity had become. For now the Guardians remained hidden, waiting in the dark, but soon, very soon, the Empire would come, and when that day arrived, humanity would no longer whisper. Humanity would roar. The Galactic Empire did not wait. Pride would never allow them to sit while whispers spread across the stars. Fleets were gathered in secret. Orders were written in fire, and admirals promised swift victory. To the common citizens of the Empire, the humans were nothing, fragile dreamers from a blue world. To the Council, they were an insult that needed to be erased. The Emperor's command was clear. Strike before their monsters awaken fully. The Imperial Armada moved like a tidal wave. Thousands of ships leaving their docks, engines blazing as they cut through space. The stars seemed to tremble as their shadows passed. They crossed into human territory with banners raised. The fleet leaders laughed. "This will be quick, this will be simple. One strike and the humans will break. Their voices carried confidence, but deep inside their hearts some remembered the spies' trembling words. The age of underestimating humanity is over. On the edge of human space, alarms screamed, outposts sent frantic signals, colonies prayed for protection. Yet in the silence of deep space the Guardians waited, their black hulls drifting without light, hidden among the void. Captain Elias Ward stood at the bridge of the first Guardian, watching as Imperial ships spread across his screens like a swarm of locusts. His voice steady. They have come, just as we knew they would. His crew looked to him, fear and fire in their eyes. The first clash was sudden. The Empire struck at a small human station, beams of fire cutting through its shields. The station burned, but even as it fell, the void stirred. A shadow moved. One of the Guardians emerged from the dark, its engines lit like a rising star, its massive guns unfolded with slow menace. The Imperial fleet froze for the first time in centuries. They hesitated. Then the Guardian fired. A single pulse of energy ripped through space, cutting an enemy cruiser in half like it was made of paper. Silence followed for a heartbeat, then chaos exploded. The Empire opened fire with everything they had. Beams, missiles, torpedoes filled the void. But the Guardian endured. Its armor drank the fire, its shields bent but did not break, and when it returned fire, whole wings of Imperial ships vanished. Admiral Veyron, commanding from his dreadnought, shouted across the comms, "Do not falter, it is only one ship. Overwhelm it." And so the Empire surged forward. But the void betrayed them, because from the darkness more shadows awoke. 2, 3, 4 Guardians revealed themselves, their weapons humming, their hulls gleaming with unnatural power. The battle turned into nightmare. Empire ships were torn apart with impossible precision, their systems blinded by pulses of human technology, their formations broken, their pride shattered. One captain screamed over comms, "It is not war, it is slaughter." But his words were cut off as his ship was consumed in fire. Still, the Empire fought, for they had never known surrender. They sent wave after wave, believing numbers would crush defiance, yet every wave broke against the Guardians. Elias stood at his bridge, calm as stone. Hold the line, strike only when needed. Make them fear every move, and his fleet obeyed. Their ships moved like hunters, silent and deadly, striking then vanishing. But then something strange happened. The first Guardian pulsed with energy and disappeared. Not destroyed, not disabled, simply gone. The entire Imperial fleet shouted in confusion. Scanners screamed, "We've lost it. It has vanished." Panic spread through their lines, ships fired blindly into the void, searching for the monster, and then, without warning, the Guardian reappeared behind them, its guns already blazing. The Empire had no answer. Their science could not explain it. Their courage could not withstand it. It was as if the humans bent the very laws of space, as if their ships were more than machines. Whispers raced through the terrified comms. "They are not ships, they are demons." By the end of the clash, hundreds of Imperial ships were gone, and still the Guardians floated strong. Dark and unmoving, they did not chase. They did not mock. They simply held the line. Silent and patient, the message was clear. Humanity did not seek conquest, but neither would they bow. Admiral Veyron watched the ruins of his once proud armada, his voice a whisper only his crew heard. This is not possible. This should not be possible, his heart, once filled with certainty, now carried fear. The humans had revealed only a fraction of their power, and still it was enough to humble the greatest fleet in the galaxy. The surviving ships limped back toward the border, carrying with them not victory, but dread. The Empire had struck first, and the Empire had failed. The Guardians had stood, and behind them, more shadows waited in the dark. In the silence that followed, Elias Ward closed his eyes, the weight of battle heavy upon him. He spoke softly to his crew. "They came to break us, but instead they learned humanity will never kneel." The crew answered with silence, the kind of silence that meant loyalty, the kind that meant belief, and across the galaxy, the shock spread like wildfire. The Empire had attacked, and the humans had not only survived, they had defied the impossible. And somewhere in the shadows of space, the Guardians pulsed with quiet light, waiting for the next storm. In the aftermath of the Great Clash, the Galactic Empire reeled, its proud fleets broken, its admirals shaken. Whispers turned into questions, questions turned into fear. For never before had the Empire faced an enemy that could vanish and reappear. Never before had its ships been blinded by silence, and never before had humans of all races stood against them and survived. In hidden laboratories on the Empire's core worlds, Scientists worked without rest. Fragments of data stolen from battle recorders lay scattered on glowing tables. Energy readings, shield patterns, strange pulses that made no sense. One elder scientist rubbed his temples, his voice low. It is not possible. Their power cores are too advanced. Their weapons too stable. Their ships too vast. There is nothing in the archives that explains this. His assistants exchanged nervous glances. Rumors began to rise. Some whispered that the humans had discovered an artifact from an ancient race. Others believed they had made a pact with some forgotten god of the stars. Still others claimed the ships were not ships at all, but living creatures bound in steel. The council demanded answers, but every report only deepened the mystery. Finally, the Emperor ordered spies to capture information at any cost. One such spy returned scarred and broken. He had been caught near the human border, dragged before their captains. He expected death, yet they let him live, and he carried back a single truth. His words sent a tremor through the entire chamber. They built it themselves from scratch with their own hands, their own minds. The council erupted, voices shouting in disbelief. Lies, it cannot be. They lack the science. They lack the resources. They lack the time. But the spy's eyes were hollow, his voice a whisper. No one helped them. No ancient god, no secret ally. The humans forged this power alone. For the first time in living memory, the Emperor did not speak. He sat still upon his throne, his fingers tapping the armrest slowly, his eyes lost in thought. The silence of that moment was heavier than the roar of any battle, because it carried the weight of realization. The humans had not only built warships, they had shattered the order of the galaxy. Meanwhile, among the humans, secrets were kept close. Only a few knew the truth of the Guardians. Deep within the shipyards, hidden beneath layers of steel and shadow, engineers walked among glowing cores, reactors that pulsed like hearts. These were not ordinary engines. They were something new, the product of human stubbornness, human curiosity, and human desperation. For decades, scientists had bent the laws of physics, pushing where the galaxy said stop, testing where others dared not. They had found ways to bend space, to cloak power, to feed ships with energy drawn not from fuel, but from the stars themselves. And when the time came, they poured all of it into the Guardians. Captain Elias Ward stood before one of these cores, his hand resting on the glass that separated him from the humming light. His engineer, a quiet woman with tired eyes, said softly, "We created this because no one believed we could. The Empire wanted us to remain weak, so we broke the chains of their rules. We reached further than they thought possible." Elias nodded. "And now the galaxy trembles." Back in the Empire, the whispers of truth spread like fire. Soldiers began to doubt. Citizens began to question. The very idea that humans had done this without help was too much for many to bear. For if it was true, then it meant that humanity had surpassed every race that once mocked them. It meant they had achieved in a century what others had not in millennia. Admiral Veyron, survivor of the disastrous battle, stood before the council, his voice sharp. "You do not understand. It is not only their ships, it is their will. They fought like they had nothing left to lose, and in that kind of enemy lies true danger." The council hissed and muttered, unwilling to accept his words, but in their hearts they knew he spoke the truth. The Emperor finally spoke, his voice calm but heavy. "If humanity has risen to such heights, then the galaxy itself must prepare. For they will not be slaves, they will not be prey, and they will not be silent." His words spread beyond the chamber, carried through networks, carried through whispers, carried through fear. And among the stars, the Guardians waited, their dark hulls pulsing softly, their cores glowing with stolen starlight. They were not ancient relics, they were not alien gifts. They were human creations, pure and unyielding, proof that even the smallest world could rise to challenge an empire. The galaxy had demanded humanity stay small, but humanity had chosen to grow. And now every power, every throne, every empire would have to face the truth. The humans had forged warships unlike any other, and behind every silent hull was a promise that they would never kneel again. And so the secrets of the warships spread, not through documents, not through declarations, but through fear, through whispers, through the simple, undeniable truth. Humanity had built the impossible, and nothing would ever be the same. The galaxy had changed. Though no one dared to say it aloud, the great fleets of the Empire still filled the stars. Its banners still hung from countless worlds. Its armies still marched on alien soil. Yet in the silence of its heart, fear had taken root. Fear of humans, fear of the black warships that moved like shadows, fear of a future no longer ruled by the Empire. In the throne chamber, the Emperor sat cloaked in silence. His council spoke in hurried voices. Some demanded a second strike, others whispered of peace. All of them carried the same tremor in their voices. They had seen what the Guardians could do. They had seen an armada broken. They had seen technology that should not exist. And none of them could promise victory. Admiral Varen, scarred from his defeat, stood before them, his voice steady but his eyes dark. You do not understand. They do not want conquest. They do not want thrones. They only want to stand. And that is what makes them dangerous, because you cannot break what refuses to bow. His words hung heavy in the air. Across the galaxy, whispers spread faster than any fleet. Traders told tales of black ships that swallowed starlight. Refugees swore they saw a human fleet vanish into the void and reappear like ghosts. Children on distant worlds played games where they pretended to be humans defying the Empire. Even allies of the Empire began to wonder if they had chosen the wrong side. And through it all, the humans remained silent. Their guardians drifted in the dark. They did not invade. They did not demand. They only waited, their silence louder than any war cry. In the grand halls of the United Earth Assembly, leaders debated under the glow of starlight. Some urged caution. We have proven our strength, but we cannot invite endless war. Others spoke with fire. If we do not show the galaxy who we are, the Empire will never stop. At last, the decision was made. Humanity would send a message, not just to the Empire, but to every world. Captain Elias Ward stood on the bridge of the First Guardian, his eyes fixed on the comm display, his crew silent, waiting. When the signal came, he spoke not with anger, but with calm defiance. His voice carried across channels, across stations, across the void. We are humanity. We do not seek conquest. We do not seek thrones, but we will never kneel. If you bring war to our home, you will learn fear. The message echoed across the stars, from the wealthiest worlds of the core to the poorest colonies on the fringe. Some cheered, some trembled, but none ignored it. For the first time in history, humanity had spoken as equals to the powers of the galaxy, and their words carried weight forged in fire. On the edges of human space, fleets of guardians awoke. One by one, their engines lit, their cores pulsed, their weapons hummed with quiet power. They did not move forward. They did not invade. They simply formed a wall of shadows around their people, a shield that dared the Empire to test its strength again. In the Empire's deepest chambers, the Emperor stared into the void, his voice a whisper only his guards heard. If they are not stopped, they will shape the future. And for the first time, he felt not anger but doubt. The galaxy trembled. Old empires wondered if their time was ending. Smaller races wondered if they had found protectors. And in the silence of space, the humans stood unbroken. The camera of history pulled back, showing shipyards hidden in the dark, vast structures awakening, larger even than the Guardians already built. Humanity was not finished. Humanity was only beginning, and every pulse of those engines carried a single truth. The age of underestimating humanity was over. The Empire still called itself eternal, but the shadows of the Guardians said otherwise. The galaxy still thought of humans as children, but the fire in their ships proved them wrong. And somewhere, deep in the silence between stars, the future waited. A future where the galaxy no longer belonged to the old empires, but to those who dared to build the impossible. And so the story did not end with battle, but with silence, a silence filled with promise, a silence that made the galaxy tremble. For they all knew somewhere out there, the humans were building still, and when they finished, the stars themselves would change.